Okay, I'm going to start up another live stream and see how I go. This is going to obviously be another God discussion. Going to be asking the same question, why do you believe in a God? Like to understand your reasoning for that type of belief, your explanation of why you believe in that. So that's what I'd be looking at. Now, this goes along the context of acquiring people joining my live stream and answering that question. So, if you happen to join my live stream and you happen to listen from the beginning, then you'll know what I'm actually asking for. But up until I start getting people to actually start calling in, I will just go through what I've been doing before, which is basically reviewing existing content on the internet. I've been doing basically review of articles written on the internet and going through statements that people are making and that. And try something a little different today, going over something along the lines of what I've seen other evaluators do, which is going over videos of presenters talking about belief in God and not so much doing what the people that I see doing, which is basically shutting down the reasoning of why someone believes in God. My whole aspect is asking questions of why. Now, I will, get some hard questions in there, but again, it comes down to the aspect of just, trying to determine why somebody believes what they believe, and I'll be asking questions along that sort. So I'm going to start that, and I just brought up a simple search for aspects of searching for people who believe in God and such. And I found this article which looks interesting. There's a neuroscientist explains why he believes in God, how prayer works. And again, if this is a neuroscientist, I really want to see what a scientist actually goes through with respect to believing that. So we're just going to start it and listen to what he says. And of course, we're going to skip this ad and see what he says. And of course, I'm going to turn on the audio.
I'll give you guys some of my thoughts on the back end and something in
Okay.
particular that I really have felt stirring in my heart over the past 24 hours. So, with all that being said, let's do it. Let's dive in.
When you talk
Okay.
about the brain and Ollie, I mean, you mentioned it last night, and this had me thinking. It's like, when you think how all that works, I have to take them aside and say, how could that happen in nature without a creator? Yeah, so, well, here's the thing. I mean, we know that the programs, meaning the genes, so genes, DNA, and there's DNA, and there's RNA, and then there's proteins. And proteins are the action end of the game where they say, hey, like, grow over here, don't grow over there. Become this kind of cell, dopamine cell, or serotonin cell. We know that those mechanisms are incredibly well conserved from mice to humans. Now, certain things happen in the human brain that you don't see in other species, like the elaboration of the parts of the brain that are involved in context and playing, especially. But the memory systems, the ones that control hormones, breathing, heart rate, they're very similar. Not exactly the same, very similar. When you start to study and understand brain development, as I did, or neuroplasticity, or dopamine, you have to, meaning, I don't care if you're an atheist, agnostic, or a believer in creator, you have to step back and just go, why? Why? Now, then, of course, there's this difference among scientists as to who believes in God, who doesn't. I'll just go on record. I'm very comfortable saying I believe in God. I do. I think there are many things that science can explain. There are certain things science can't explain. But I'll even go a step further, which is that all the elements of science are entirely compatible with the idea of there being God. And I'm not the first scientist to say this. I mean, Einstein believed in God.
Uh, we're just going to validate that. This is coming from somebody who supposedly has a high level of education. He just indicated Einstein believed in God. Let's do a search for that. I don't want to. I don't want to say that he did or did not, even though I did hear the aspect that he was very agnostic himself. and was not someone who actually followed a religion specifically. But let's see if we can find anything specific about it. Okay, so the very first thing that comes up on Google is Albert Einstein's view on God were very complex and often misunderstood. He famously stated he believed in Spinoza's God, a deity revealed in the orderly harmony of the universe rather than a personal God who intervenes in human affairs. He describes himself as a religious non-believer rather than an atheist. Okay, that's kind of hard to see, exactly, was he concretely? Again, when someone says I'm a religious non-believer, it seems that it's almost contradictory. Let's see what Wikipedia says on about Albert Einstein's religious views. Okay, I think this is just the beginning of that. Just great. I He clarified, however, that I am not an atheist, preferring to call himself an agnostic or a religious non-believer. In other interviews, he stated that he thought that there was a lawgiver who sets the laws of the universe. Einstein also stated he did not believe in life after death, adding, one's life is enough for me. He was closely involved in his lifetime with several humanist groups. Einstein rejected a conflict between science and religion and held that cosmic religion was necessary for science. Okay. I really didn't actually recall that. I recall the aspect of statements saying that he was not religious, and maybe that's where they get the aspect of him not being religious is the fact that I've read statements or articles or things where people stated the fact that he was not religious, but just in this little paragraph in Wikipedia, you probably get the impression he probably wasn't religious, even though he says he's a religious non-believer. But he also says he feels that there's a lawgiver. So it almost seems like he did feel that there was something more, and that could be perceived to some people as being a god. So let's just accept the fact that that's a possibility, and we won't indicate that this particular neuroscientist was saying something that was not true. It could be perceived as being true from obviously evaluation of what Einstein had said.
Carl Jung, very psychopath, there are many atheist scientists. There are agnostic scientists who are just kind of unsure, right? And for me, I'm an absolute of biology. It's just incredible. We're sitting here having this conversation. It's language that they wrote, sound waves that we're perceiving and understanding. I mean, and I think the brain represents the apex of incredible in terms of biology. Like the heart is interesting, the immune system is interesting, the liver is interesting, but the brain is unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, think about the number of different ways you can move your body compared to another species. Mm-hmm. Think about what you did today. Think about what I was attempting to do today, right? Yeah. Spectacular. Think about technology. These lights, Tesla cars, spaceships. I mean, yeah. The internet. I mean, unbelievable. And yet, oh so real. Yeah. So, we can talk a bit about how well, I'll just say this. Secretly, I've always been. I grew up in a split religion home. My family's like the UN. We got there in Guatemala, Denmark, Argentina, New York, like all the different political battles in my family. Super left, super right, libertarians, lefties. It's crazy. Thanksgivings can be difficult. Yeah. But I'll say this. I absolutely pray. I absolutely love that the idea, but also what for me is really the belief, which is that we can't control everything. We're not in as much control as we think we are, and that the magnificence of biology, the magnificence of nature is it's impossible for me to conceive how that could come about any other way.
Okay. No, he obviously is a believer in God. He obviously has very strong feelings towards that. He indicates aspects of things that he finds complex, namely the human brain. And he just made a statement that he gives the impression that there's a level of complexity there that's just not understandable or not perceivable of how it could come about, except for something, that most likely generated or produced it. Now, the whole aspect of belief and not belief, okay, that's your personal feeling, but again, the aspect of proof, that's a whole other, that's a whole other way of looking at it. And I cannot say that because something's complex, it must be because of this. And that's what I've said in my other videos is, to me, that's almost like jumping to conclusions. Some people may say that's the only perceivable, conclusion you can come to. That's somewhat irrelevant. I don't care if it's the only perceivable assumption you can come to. For one thing, that's your assumption. It may not be everybody's assumption, but the whole thing is it factual? Because you don't understand, because you don't know, doesn't, provide the validation that it must be something specific. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm asking for, again, the religious people to come in and sit there and say, yeah, but this is why this is this way. This is the why this is the only way it can happen. And I would actually have to need concrete evidence of that, I can't go with the aspect of, again, like what this scientist has just said, that it's just too complex, or it's the complexity of it is overwhelming. And again, there's lots of things we can say that's complex, and because it's complex, we can't jump to the conclusion. It really comes down to that is because something's complex, do we jump to a conclusion? And that's what I want the religious people to at least understand from my perspective, saying, if something's complex, the only thing you can say is, I don't know. Him as a scientist, I hope he's going to validate that, the fact that says, he goes, well, this is what I believe, but I know as a scientist, I have to conclude that because it's complex, or let's say a level of complexity that I can understand or we can understand, the only thing I can say is I don't know. And that's a completely valid thing to say. So let's continue listening to him speak and see if he does make clarification on that.
It just is. Now, yeah, I mean, I think that, full stop. Who do you pray to? It's an interesting one because I think, God, yeah. So I absolutely do. I've actually started reading the Bible recently, start to finish. I feel like it's my duty to learn and in some sense compare Old and New Testament. I'm really interested in the stories, but I'm fascinated by the story of us, right, and the story of everything. And so, but yeah, I pray out loud in the morning, sometimes again in the middle of the night if I wake up. And it's only recently that I've been doing this more often. It's giving me peace. Oh my goodness, it's giving me so much. It's giving me peace. And it's just gonna sound weird, and probably people are like, what are you talking about? It works. It works. There's a way in which certain things I was grappling with, I just couldn't resolve. I couldn't do it, and it was all internal. I just couldn't do it.
How were you trying to resolve these things? Like, have an answer?
Yeah, discipline myself. I mean, it wasn't like I was super, undisciplined. I mean, obviously I have a lot of self-discipline, but I always pray, when I remove my defects of character. I always wanted to have a deeper relationship to God. I always wanted that, and I kind of was like, why don't I have that? Well, duh. That's like saying I want to be fit. Why I'm not fit? Because you're not running, you're not lifting, you're not doing the things. And it was a couple of different people that kept showing up in my life, and they were doing it, and I was like, well, pray. And I've learned, and I'll certainly try and do this, that a lot of prayer is about listening, and a lot of prayer is about you ask for things or listen for things, and then an hour later, 2 days later, you go, hey, like it doesn't happen in the moment necessarily, just like fitness. I don't want to compare fitness. I don't want to trivialize prayer by comparing fitness, but there's some parallels that are relevant.
Yeah.
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store, preloaded with
Apologize for that.
yeah, it's consistent. And then all of a sudden, like things come up, and you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. That makes so much sense.
Really what he's talking about is an idea of cause and effect, but in a spiritual sense. And this does really align with Scripture because God does, in many, many places in Scripture, actually make an ask of us. He says, he tells us to do certain things, and he tells us that if
Okay, I'm just going to skip over this.
seek,
I'm not concerned about this particular person's, communication, so I'm just going to move forward through and see if we get back to the scientist. Okay. It looks like we're going to get to the end and it's going to be just this person speaking. Okay, so that's the end. And the scientist really didn't say anything about the specifics of why a God exists, more along the lines of just his feelings towards God, which is completely acceptable. You know, he's allowed to do what he is allowed to do. No one's stopping him from doing that. The only thing that he stipulated about, the existence of God and the reasons for that is the concept of complexity. And he did mention the brain and the fact that the brain is very complex. But he didn't go into any details of why he feels, that is absolutely a good indication of why there has to be a God in existence. Um, you may disagree. You may say that's a completely valid reason. I'd certainly like to hear your input on that. So, if you can provide that kind of input, that would be great. Um, and I'm going to leave this a little short video like that. Again, anybody who views a video, I'm looking for I'm looking for people to join my channel, to become a member. That's one reason is because I'm actually trying to build up my channel. I'm trying to build up actually the minimum subscriber requirement from YouTube for the actual requirement for generating revenue from YouTube, which is 1,000 subscribers. So if you can join, that would be fantastic. That would be great. I'm going to continue doing these type of videos, probably at the beginning here, because I don't have really a lot of people who actually monitor my videos in this sort of fashion where I'd be reviewing other content and that. But the end result is I really want to get people to start joining my live streams because I really want to talk to you. I want to hear what you feel, what you believe. As I stated in my introduction video, that I want to talk to the everyday person. I want to see what you think. I want to see your reasons for, doing and believing the things that you do and believe, because to me that would be very interesting. As I said before, I'm probably going to ask questions, but I don't want anybody to think that that's something that's, combative. I don't want people thinking that I'm trying to debate them. I'm not trying to debate them. When I'm asking questions, I'm just asking for clarity. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm not going to say you should look at it this way or that way. I'm just going to say, why do you think that? And you explain to me why you think that. And I may actually have other questions for you for clarity-wise, or for me to go through the process of maybe making, points of questioning, for lack of a better way of saying that, to give me more clarity of why you think the way you think. Not that, I agree or disagree with you, but understand where you come from. So if I can get that kind of input, that would be great. And if you want to join, that would be great. I may start another video maybe in a few hours again to do another one. And if you do see this video and you'd like to join me, certainly watch out for my channel and monitor to see when I start a new stream. And again, like I said, hopefully that'll be in a couple of hours. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.